All right. Well, thank you guys for coming out and being a part of this with us today. It's an honor to speak to you guys. Of course, she told you a whole bunch of stuff about me, and some of it's true, but most of it's probably not. But right here in front of me are some very important people, so I certainly want to make sure I recognize them. We got some of our county commissioners, Linda Yockey and Greg Vick is right here with me. Scott Johnson also served with me in public safety. We also have actually part of our Chevrolet Bedford Partnership Board here with the Fayars. Jody Lambert's here, and probably most importantly, my Uncle Jay is here. And I wouldn't be the mayor without him, to be honest with you. I mean, God first, but Uncle Jay and his wife Jenny second. And he stayed with me through the whole journey, and it's been crazy. But we're glad to be a part of this with you today. Let me see if I can get this thing clicking. I don't know what's going on. It must be the food. The food was fantastic. And I hope I got to meet everybody in advance of getting here today, and I certainly will stay and talk with you. Spoiler alert, what I'm going to tell you is that obviously as a county we're strong and our future is absolutely bright. And the presentation will tell you a little bit more about that. But let me give you a couple of fun facts about Bedford. If you didn't realize it, we're 12th in growth in the state of Tennessee. 95 counties, 12. That's pretty impressive. But it brings challenges with that. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Average household income here is about $55,000. Now that's a little bit low, ideally, for us to continue to attract some of the things you're looking for, like Publix and some of the things that go on with that. I grew up being told, well, we got to get to 50,000 people to really attract that next level of retail and interaction and community enrichment. We're cheating the system because we're moving on, even though we have reached 50+ thousand. We're about 54,000 people now. We have lagged behind just a little bit on household incomes, but we continue to work on that as we go. The average house in Bedford is about $313,000. Seems odd to me because my very first house I ever bought was certainly a starter home, but it was like $38,000 back in like 1986 or 7. So average household now, our house selling is in that range. Interesting enough, and I heard this even whenever I first got in this role, about 38% of our people leave Bedford to go to work every day and go outside of Bedford. I don't really like that. I understand it, but it was one of the things I ran on, was to try to get people back to Bedford. Ultimately, I want my grandbabies to live in Bedford, and my daughter reminds me often, as long as Walmart and Kroger are only two places you have a shop, we're not coming home. And so we've been working hard on that, and of course we got to have the right kind of community. That 38% turns out to be about 10,000 people a day are leaving out of Bedford. The interesting thing is there's data that suggests there's about 10,000 people coming into Bedford as well. So that's odd. You would like to see the skill sets balance and people find more appropriate work here at home and not have to commute. I've been blessed most of my career to not have to drive. That's really a blessing, to not go to Nashville every day. I don't know what I would do if that was the case. Interesting enough, Bedford, of course, if you grew up here, you would say, of course we're agriculture, but we're like number 3 in agriculture, particularly cows, chicken, and horses. Could you imagine horses and chicken? But cows, and we got folks that are raising that stuff right here too. Pretty important. And that's another part, and we'll talk, I think I've got it here and some other things. She talked a little bit about that. I'm going to hit all 3 of these, but I really ran, I'll give you my stump speech right quick. I really ran on 3 issues: education, public safety, and infrastructure. It leads to jobs. Marketing people, and I got my guys in the room today, and I thank them for being here with me, but really about 3 issues is what you want to focus on. That's what we've done. So here's what I think about education. We had way too many kids in portable classrooms. We had over 800 kids in portable classrooms in the city of Shelbyville alone when I took office. I did not like that. I don't think that's appropriate. If we can build a $40+ million jail and justice center to put our less than desirables sometimes in that facility, surely we can put our kids in the right learning environment. And bigger than just putting our kids in the right learning environment, it is a security issue. But it's also important for our teachers. We're recruiting, asking people to come invest in our communities, and those teachers deserve a rich learning environment for those difficult, challenging situations that they teach in daily around here. Public safety is near and dear to me. As she said, I've been a paramedic forever. I feel like in 1989, I retired my license a couple of years ago. Still have a nursing license in case this gig don't work out. And but I enjoyed that. I love being with the public, but it's very difficult because structure has been not something that we've had a lot of around here in Bedford, in my mind, for a long time. And so I wound up getting in leadership right away because of some of the things I've seen. And then infrastructure, it leads to jobs. That just sounds good as your buzz. But more important and more specifically, what I was thinking about with infrastructure was really broadband. And I know United's in the room, and I promised to give them props for all the things they've done, because they really embraced us on this journey. Whenever I took office, and the data is not right in front of me, but there was something like 5,000 homes in the county, not in the city, that were not serviced, didn't have any form really of it. They had got that thing down now after just a few years at under about 1,500. I think now we're tracking to about 700, and we ultimately want to be the first fully connected rural community in the state. Obviously, and absolutely believe that the secret sauce is entrepreneurs, business professionals, millennials coming back to Bedford. That's what's got to happen if we're going to lift the entire system. That all really starts with broadband. They used to say with water down the road so that you could build a house, and then sewer came along and all that stuff. But more important than any of that now has been proven out is connectivity. I mean, we got to have it. These businesses have to have it. Families expect it. But for those that are doing business, even if it's a hybrid model, when you work from home a couple of days a week, but you're back in Hattiesburg or wherever it is, the others, you got to have that high-speed connection. So we're dialed into that. We've had some great people on the commission that believed in that and seen the value of it right away. And then we had an industrial park that had nothing going. And we talk a little bit about that more in a minute, because I think it pops up. So that was really, when I think about infrastructure, some people think about pipes in the ground and water treatment and those things, and all those things are important. But I was just really looking at what's going to make a difference so we can bring people here that we want here in Bedford. I like to say we know people are coming to Bedford. We can either live with what shows up or we can go after what we want. And so by building the right environment, I believe that we give ourselves the best opportunity, the best chance at the best outcome by building the community that we want. That was my motto in EMS. I used to tell my guys all the time, we don't save lives, but we give the patient the best chance, the best outcome. Same idea right here. The themes are all the same. As long as you see me, those are the themes you'll see. So, but we talk about accomplishments, and we've got some, and it's really exciting. When I took office, the Justice Center I was just telling you about, is where the court system ultimately wound up. The commission before me had approved it but not built it. So we got stuck with building that thing, and there was all kinds of challenges, but we got it done. The same thing with courthouse renovation of the annex right across the county had bought the building, had funded to repurpose that to get out of rental space that they were actually in for the fee offices to be. We got it done. Here's the important part, and really the coolest thing, if I don't get to be a part of anything else exciting, is the fact that we stand ready to be in a situation where all of our kids are out of portables. So we got a new elementary built, we got Cascade High School finished, we got portables out, we've got a plan to get the rest of them out, we've got expansion at Thomas Magnet, at Liberty, there's other things going on. Now this took the school board, this took the school administration, this took the county commission, it took the mayors, it took everybody pulling in the same direction to see this happen, because as the county legislative body, we don't make the decision about how you educate, but we are where the road ends for your ability to borrow money and to have the funds to actually invest. And some people would say, well, you're not conservative if you spend money. I don't consider these kind of expenditures to be spending money. I consider them to be investment, because I expect something in return for what I spent. So I'm not for just spending money to spend it, but I am willing to lean in on investing in what's going to make our future what it ought to be. We're doing that with education. We're excited to be a part of that. Lots of public safety enhancements. Believe it or not, our law enforcement didn't even have body cams whenever I got here in 2018. We didn't have SROs in all the schools we do now, but we can thank the state of Tennessee and the governor for helping us make sure that we had enough funding to get SROs in all the schools. We had them in some of the schools, but not all of them. We've been able to, because of growth and the buildings that are going on, we need a fire marshal program. We didn't actually have that in the county part, but it's important those life safety things are being looked at the time things are being built, because people are going to live in these for generations after. So we were able to pick that program up. And then, of course, other personnel and equipment. We made investments in EMS. We made investments in law enforcement. We made investments in fire, in EMA, emergency communications, all those things are coming along. Then broadband, we're talking about over $11 million grant-wise, where United come alongside us, federal, state funds have really given us the opportunity to empower and get out of that 5,000-ish number of people that didn't have any form of connectivity. And now, like I said, I believe we're under 700, 600. They can't answer, I'm just talking. But it's somewhere in there. And our goal is to be everybody connected, obviously. And Bedford is way, way ahead when you look at other counties for that kind of data. And again, thanks to United and the fact that federal grants and state grants came along to help us with that. So that wasn't property tax. That was actually grant dollars. Courthouse renovation. Now here's going to be a situation where I want to tell you that courthouse, something good comes something bad. COVID locked everything down. As you remember, I would have never believed that a pandemic would happen while I was the mayor. We trained about it when I was in EMS, but I never believed I'd see it. I become the mayor and bam, we have a pandemic. And so they lock everything down and the government says, you need to stay home. And they say you can't interface with what your government's doing. And so what did come along with that, though, was some funding came down from the state and federal that we've never seen at the local level to actually go toward infrastructure. We took that opportunity to say, we need to invest in our historic courthouse here on the square. We need to bring technology in there where the public can access us during our meetings, whether you can be there or not. The commissioners were all crammed up, 18 of them, shoulder to shoulder, 9 on each table, right in front of a small bench. So close proximity, all those things were a problem. And then, of course, this courthouse burnt and was rebuilt in the 30s, and it's not ADA compliant, or there was a lot of places where it was not. By that COVID funding, and we were able to change out the circulatory system, so we were able to do this total renovation without property tax. We were able to do it with infrastructure funds that came from the federal level and the state level. And so now you have a mostly ADA compliant courthouse. You have full access to the government through technology there. You have the commission set in a configuration that is appropriate for distancing if we find ourselves in another situation where that matters. We have new complete circulatory system for air and clean air. In related to that, an interesting thing, they had to tear apart the central unit that was in the attic and bring it down, and they had to take the new one apart and take it up and assemble it up there. That's how big it is, and that's how limited it is in accessibility because, again, the way it was built in the 30s. So if we have to say something good comes something bad, with COVID, it did give the county some opportunities to make some investment for the community to be engaged with your government, whether you can physically be with us or not. So we're grateful for that. Emergency Operations Center for emergency services in general. We'd been in a kind of an outdated place that really was a used place when we got it. Emergency management is the key for that. We got the opportunity to transition to a newer facility that the county built many years ago. It was being used by a state agency. The agency got repurposed, and so we were able to get that facility. So now we have really what will be, and we're still in the build out because we're doing it with funds we have instead of leaning on the property tax for it. But it'll be state of the art. And we also have our communications 911 center that stands independent but joined with us. Cross-pollinating is the word I think some people would use. And so they're building a new facility too. So we're setting ourselves to be right where we need to be as we're growing as a community. And then convenience center upgrades. Believe it or not, everybody ultimately goes to the convenience center for your trash. I like to say when somebody moves to Bedford, the first thing that happens, they take their kid to the school, right? The second thing is they're hunting for where they're going to dump their trash. And then the third thing, if we're not careful, is they're going to need some form of public safety, whether it just be police patrol where they live, or they do have an event where they need our services immediately or what have you. So it's important that we make investments in that as well. And we've done that and we continue. We made several $1 million investment there too. And here again, COVID, which I would have never equated COVID to trash. But here's what happened. Prior to COVID, most people ate out and you ate while you were where you were going to get your food. So you threw your trash away. I mean, you had trash then, you have trash now. The phenomenon that changed forever after COVID for us was Burger King or wherever you ate, when you throw that trash away, they paid to dispose of that trash. But once we went into COVID and they said, you can go get food remotely, but you got to take it home. Now we put all this packaging on it and you go to your house and eat it. And guess where you throw that trash away? At your house. And guess who then pays to dispose of that trash? We do, because you've got to take it to the convenience centers. So we were able to make some investments in additional bins so that we could be open more hours and that we could manage more trash because of that. But that was an interesting thing that I did not foresee at the front end of COVID, was how it was going to impact us right away, immediately, with trash disposal and the amount of it. It makes sense when we reverse engineer it, but we didn't see it on the front end. But we made investments there with federal funds as well. So my focus, and we talked a little bit about that. Of course, I told you I ran on 3 things: education, public safety, and infrastructure. But here's what I wanted to do if I got the opportunity to be your administrator. I wanted to bring national standards and best practices for what we do where we can. Now, there's some things I'm going to tell you in a minute that contradict that a little bit. But here's the one thing I would tell you. I think I knew this growing up, but I live it now, is I always thought, why does politicians not want structure? I mean, why wouldn't they just decide how this is and anybody could figure this out tomorrow? It seems like every time we kind of reinvent the wheel every time we have a problem. Well, here's what I probably knew, but I live it now, is if you set structure in place, if you set expectations and standards for what you're going to do, then it's very easy for you to hold me accountable when I don't do it. So politicians by nature are not interested in that model. Now, I'm interested in that model because I grew up in public safety, grew up in EMS. That's how you save yourself, is that you did the right thing no matter what the outcome was when it comes to a patient. So we try to apply those principles everywhere we can, and that was a key component of my administration, and I think it proves evident today. Obviously, we know that we're going to have growth, but we got to have, they use the term smart growth. Managed growth, either way you want to say it. People are coming whether you like it or not. There's got to be some balance to that, but we got to be wise about what we're doing. And we need to have some throttling abilities, you might say, from time to time to adjust things a little bit here and there so that we don't overrun the system and collapse it in regards to that. Alternative funding, that was something I didn't feel like we were probably using grant fund as much as we could have. They probably were doing more than I realized prior to my administration, but we've certainly leaned in on it, and we've been able to wrangle in over $14 million of grant funding for different kinds of programs. Even my community people sitting here with me today enjoy grants, do a lot to help us enrich the community. So we're committed to that. We continue to be committed to it. This is probably one of the other real special things to me. Everybody would like to have a tax break, and I don't think there's anybody in the room who would want their taxes cut. We'd like to do that. When you're at the local level of government, the fact of the matter is we get the unfunded mandates. The rubber meets the road right here in Bedford. Whether the state or federal government sends you any funds to take care of that kid in the school or take care of that road issue on your street or whatever, the local level has to deal with it, whether you have funds or not. So it's very difficult for us to cut taxes or to think practically that we can extremely lower the tax rate. Now, you hear it at the federal level all the time. Oh, we need to cut taxes and shrink government. I agree with that. I'm a Republican. I agree with that. But it's different at the local level than it is at the federal level. At the federal level, they make their own laws and they print their own money. There ain't no way there's not fat in there. But at the local level, we live with what shows up and we provide the service whether we get paid for it or not. So that it's a little bit different phenomenon for us whenever we're dealing with that. And so, but what I could do, I didn't feel like we were in a good position to just across the board lower the taxes. And again, the mayor doesn't ultimately decide this, but the mayor will get blamed for it, and the mayor's willing to take the stand for where it falls. The commission is the one that sets your tax rate, but they rely heavily on the administration to give them information and guide them. So I'm not throwing them under the bus. But I did not feel we were in good position, and I think the commission as a whole didn't feel we were in good position at the time to lower the tax rate necessarily for everybody, although it has been lowered since I've been here, and you'll see that number here in a few minutes too. But what I did want to see us do is if we could help anybody, let's go after the low-income elderly, and let's give them a tax break. Because there's already a program that the state does for people that meet certain criteria. We call them the low-income elderly tax bracket. For people that are in that, the state already gives them some relief. It's not a lot of money, $100, $120 toward their property tax. I asked the county to step up and say, could we support at least doing and matching what the state does? So if the state gives $100 to that family, that low-income family, toward their taxes, we're matching that. And so that's something that we had in the last 2 budgets. We hope to have it again in this budget this year. That's a very important, that's a lot of money to folks that are living on $1,200 a month. You know, for us, $100 is how much we put gas in the truck or something. But it's a lot of money to those people. And if we could help anybody, the low-income elderly ought to be first. I believe that, the commission believed that, and I believe that we'll continue to believe that. Now, we want to expand that. We want to pick the veterans up in there at some point. We want to give everybody a tax break everywhere we can. But we certainly want to make sure that you get value for what you are spending. And that's what we're talking about today. That's why I'm trying to show you what we are doing and what you are getting for what you pay. Because I think most people at the end of the day complain about taxes when they don't feel like they're getting anything for what they're spending. So let me at least try to shine light on that for you today. Public access to digital and live streaming, we talked about that. We were able to do that through grants. You have more access to see in real time what the government's doing than you ever have. Now, people throw around the word transparency all the time and give innuendo as if we're not doing that. But we do. and those meetings are all public. We have a county website that's managed by our IT folks, and then those meetings are live streamed. Now, you cannot communicate with us through that live stream. We can't take questions from there, but you can see in real time. It's also saved and recorded on YouTube channels. You can go back and look at any of those meetings. You always have access to my office. By the way, I put my card on the table for you guys today. Now, our great folks that provided the food today have a card out there for you as well. Now, they're going to give you cheese dip with their card. And I'd like to tell you, I can get you out of jail free with my card, but it's not true. So you're better off to redeem their card for the cheese dip than you are to be calling, wait a minute, I got the mayor's number. Just wait a minute before you write that ticket. I'll be no help to you. In fact, my son, the big joke is, he said, Eddie, if I get in trouble, I'm just going to tell them who you are. And I said, well, then you're going to jail for sure. So you best not to divulge who you know when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I drive the speed limit every chance I get because I know what will happen if they stop me. So fiscal responsibility, that's an interesting thing. Now, before I got here as the mayor, we had a lot of challenges as Bedford County because we had growing pains and the county was evolving and growing. And we're having a lot of trouble getting clean audits or even audits that the comptroller was not breathing down our neck about. It wasn't necessarily that people were straight up stealing money, but they weren't following business principles. They weren't using accounting principles. And I got one of my schoolmates in the room, and I know she can't believe I'm the mayor, knowing that she had me in school. But we had a lot of trouble with that. The county made a decision in 2006, before I was ever the mayor, to go to the Financial Management Act of 1981. Prior to that, we were under what was called general law, which means the mayor's office was the CEO, the CFO, and the COO. And that sounds good till you're in charge. And so the county, it really outgrowed the ability for the agency itself to deal with it. But the commission had the vision and the wisdom, and some of them are here that was on during that time, to adopt this act. This act has served us well. In fact, I'm proud to tell you tonight that the comptroller himself will be at the courthouse to thank and praise the county for our financial structure and discipline and the acts of our people to have a clean audit. For a county to actually get a clean audit, anybody knows anything about a county, you're like, what? Yeah, it's hardly doable. And it's usually 5, 6, 8 counties a year that can achieve that. Bedford has achieved it more than once. We got it this time. They're coming down tonight to shine light on that. So kudos to all of our department heads, our financial team, our commission that had the vision to adopt it and hold the line, because we've got people that want to change that right now for some reason, which is purely political. I'll leave it alone. But clean audit, just as I talked about, is unbelievable. We have the best finance rating we've ever had. If you have to borrow money, you want a good bond rating. And we do have to borrow money. And we haven't always had the kind of bond rating that we have today. We haven't always had money in reserves for us to be in the best position to borrow money at low interest rates and be able to call the note for those in the banking business, pay it off early without penalty. We're getting to do a little of that because of our financial structure we have today. That was not an option to us in the past. We refinanced a bunch of bonds since I've been here. Now, I'd love to tell you, your mayor is that smart. But when I got here, I had financial advisors coming and talking to me. This is back in 2018, saying, you got a lot of debt that's on variable rate. It was good rates at the time, but the prediction was that the interest rates were going to move and there'd be a problem later, and we needed to strongly look at that. We did that. The commission endorsed that. The financial group met with me. The financial committee recommended that. And we were able to refinance bonds whenever it was a good deal for the county to do it. We saved over $11 million just in bond payments. So all that's real money. If you think about what $11 million is, for every penny that we charge you on the tax rate, we collect about $130,000. So if I raised your taxes 1 penny, I would expect to get $130,000 new dollars to spend in the county government. So if you're talking about $2 million, because that number is familiar to me, and I'll talk to you more about it in a minute, you're talking about 16 cents on the tax rate just to get that one time. So when you talk about $11 million, we're actually being pretty fiscally responsible. Again, it's a whole team of people. The mayor is really not that smart. We have lowered the property rate. When I took office in 2018, the property tax rate was $2.56 per thousand. Okay, remember the penny being worth at that time probably $100,000, because it moves every year, it gets a little bigger. But today the property tax rate is $2.32. So even Cascade math, for my Cascade fans in the room, it's lower today than it was when I took office. Now here's the trick, okay, because all politicians double talk, so watch my lips. The tax rate is lower today than it was when I took office. The tax rate has moved up and down since I've been in office. But what's most important to you guys that are going to say, my taxes hadn't been lowered, I pay more every time. The problem there is, and we have no control over that, is your property values. We're prohibited by law to weigh in on that. As you can imagine, it's actually in the law. The mayor don't set the property value rate, because as you can imagine, my family's property would be cheap, right? And it really is. But it would be even cheaper because you wouldn't want them to be taxed at a higher rate. So that's done by third party. Rhonda Clanton is our assessor. They work with the state for those formulas. We don't have any say in it. So if your property value goes up, even if your property rate goes down, you still could pay some more money than you did. Now, here's the silver lining in all that. Think about this like your 401k. You're much, much, much better off that it's climbing and have to pay a little tax on it than you are for it to be going down. Because you know what would happen if your property values dropped in Bedford? We'd have to raise the property tax rate to recover those funds. You see, the only way I really have to make money is through property tax. A little bit of sales tax here and there, and if any of you are following politically what's going on, it comes and goes like the wind. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but the tax rate is lower today than it was in 2018 when I took office. The other big thing I wanted to do is, if we were going to be able to get these projects going, building schools, doing some of these other things I'm going to show you that are in project, we need a project management. We need somebody that's making sure we were getting what we were paying for. I don't feel like in the past we necessarily had a good handle on that. I turned that upside down on its head. It made some people uncomfortable. There's still people that hold it over my head today, but the fact of the matter is you're getting closer to what you paid for than you ever have. We've saved money in the process, and I'm proud of the projects that we have. So here's the challenges. Of course, again, I've referred to this a little bit. The city sued the county wanting to take sales tax back that was going to education. 100% of it is. We got an odd ruling from the court just the other day saying, well, maybe we agree with the city that they can have that money back. That's $2 million a year that's going to education. Tonight, the commission will be getting a briefing from legal as to what we think our next steps are. But it's not in our interest to not have every penny that we can have going to education go into it. Look, I tell people all the time, how you get people out of poverty is education. It's no social program. It's not $20 more on your EBT card. It's not a gold phone. It's education. We cannot let off the gas on education. This is not the time to pump the brake. And this is my opinion and my opinion only. Rapid growth, as we talked about, it's devastating to us if it comes in waves and stays hard at us. And that's really what we've kind of experienced up till now. But it's balancing a little bit, but managed growth is how we'll deal with that. And that's what we're doing. We're putting these safety valves in place to help manage that. We've been talking to you about it along the way. Again, and this is important, particularly to farmers or people that have farms or live out in the rural part. They're like, save our farms. Don't let people cut these farms up. What's going on? This is a double-edged sword, because you, as a taxpayer, you bought the property, you're paying the taxes to me every year. You might complain, but I don't hear it. And you want to sell your farm, and somebody wants to make that a subdivision. Who am I to tell you you can't sell your farm? Unless we've preset some determinations about what we're going to allow and not allow. And my planning guys are in the building with us today, and I'm grateful for all the work he does. And my position all along was, I don't really want to see us necessarily putting standards and regulations in place that tell people no, but I would like to see us, and I think we have an obligation to continue to raise the standard on what we will accept. And so I'd much rather say you can do it, but it's got to be in gold lettering, than to say, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. And there's got to be some balance to that. And of course, you lawsuits, you've got property rights if you own property. So there has to be balance. We're constantly dealing with that. We've got a strong planning commission. Some of those folks are right here with us today as well. But ag is critical. Obviously, it's a rich component of who we are, and we have to have it. So we want to have preservation, but that's a trick and a balance that they're always working on and through. Affordable housing, and don't let me confuse the two. You got low-income housing, and then there's what's referred to as affordable housing. We have plenty of low-income housing. Per capita, on the balance, we exceed really what we ought to be. Again, I don't want to displace people that are in those situations. I'm not trying to run them off. I come from them in a lot of ways. But we need to dilute them, as I like to say, with people that can pull on the wagon, not get over in it. And so how do we do that? We got to have the things that we're talking about here today. But we do need affordable housing. We need housing that teachers can afford to come here and teach in our school and buy their first home. We do need that, but we don't need to invest in a bunch of low-income housing that would all be government subsidized. Again, I want everybody to have a place to live. I'm not trying to remove anybody, but I don't want to do anything that attracts more of it till we get stabilized as a community. Cost containment and inflation, everybody in this room is thinking about that. We as a government are too. I have people tell me all the time, well, you don't pay for gas what I pay for gas. Correct. We do not pay it's about 52 cents, I think, on that $2.56 gas. Let's pretend it's 56 cents tax. We don't pay the 56 cents, we pay $2. But here's the thing, when the gas goes up 20 cents, my $2 went to $2.20, even though yours went to $2.80. You follow me? So it's still a cost increase to the county government when inflation is a factor. And it's still a cost to the county whenever tariffs will be applied to what we're buying. We're dealing with the same issues. So cost containment is important. Inflation is a real thing, and we're working every day to figure out how to minimize that. Part of that for us has to be strategically thinking about, if we've got to do this, we probably need to go on and do it. It's easy to say no. Everybody in this room is capable of saying no. It's difficult to find people who can say yes when we're in tough times. That's what the commission's got to be. That's what your mayor and leadership have got to be. And if I'm not that, run me out, because you've got to have people that are willing to do what's right, even though it's hard. And sometimes it is. And those are some of the things that we're battling every day. And then there's this thing called unfunded liabilities. And if you're in the business world, you know a lot about this. We don't really have a comprehensive capital improvement plan. What does that mean? Roofs, HVAC systems, and these kind of things, they don't necessarily make it into our budget model every year when we're looking at how much money we're going to spend, what's the tax rate going to be, and how we're going to go. But that's a real thing, and we've been working on that since I've been here, to identify what these costs are, what the aging of our buildings are, because if the roof collapses today, guess what? Whether I budgeted for it or not, we have to fix the roof, right? And so that's real money that has to be accounted for, or know where your reserve would come from to cover it. So then they've had some reserves, but it was just sort of the swag method, the kind of sophisticated guess about how much is enough to have in that. But we really are leaning in on having a more formal structure for that. And again, I think that's fiscal responsibility. Again, I told you, I'm happy to tell you I'm a Republican. County building projects, here we go. Juvenile detention facility. I'm proud to say that we're going to get it done. There are people that did not support this project. Let me just tell you, as the mayor, the commission ultimately voted for this. They wrangled with it for years before even I was the mayor. If we'd have never been in the business of housing juveniles, and we were sending them out and paying $250, $300 a day for them to be somewhere else, I don't know if I'd have been so interested in maybe looking at a way to have our own facility. But because we do have our own facility, it was just deplorable and dilapidated. And we had everything in place. And I'm telling you, 1,000 people a year are coming to Bedford. That's what the census data says. 1,000 people a year are coming to Bedford. We got to have somewhere to put these kids. It would stand to reason that if the population grows, the crime's going to grow. And it ain't going to be just adult crime. Okay? So it did not make sense to Chad. And again, we were able to do it in a way without raising property tax to do it. It was within the structure that was available to the county commission to do it. And so the decision was made. I absolutely stand by that decision. The commission stepped up, and that project is underway. And surely to goodness, it'll be built before I'm gone. Surplus property facility and a morgue. We had kind of passed surplus around even whenever I was a department head. It just wherever there was a vacant building, the county would kind of put surplus in there till they could figure out what to do with it. Surplus don't have a whole lot of value, but the longer you hold it, the less it's worth, and the more space it's taken up and the more problems you have. We needed a better program for that. We needed a surplus facility. That's going to happen. The commission approved that. That's on the way. And then we got thrown a curveball a little bit about morgue management, but it is our responsibility for Alla Hospital deaths. And I know our hospital team is here with us today. We're grateful for the things they do. And I'd be happy to tell you that Bedford could have lost their hospital in some of the challenges we've had in the past years. And so we're grateful to Vanderbilt to stand up and step up to do that for us, because you're talking about entrepreneurs, business professionals, and millennials coming to your community. You're not going to get them if you don't have a hospital and you don't have comprehensive health care. So thank you guys for that. We had some expansion of, that's our natural resources group, and they had some, it's a very small project that's underway right now. And then fire and rage for our law enforcement. I don't know if I have any of my law enforcement people in the room today, but they're near and dear to me, especially if somebody's shooting at you. But in the world we live today and the things that are going on, they're required to do training, just like I was talking about training for a paramedic and best chance, the best outcome. They have training needs as well. They need a facility where they can train for daytime, nighttime, in between times, raining, snowing, sunny outside. We've not been in good position to have a facility to now, but again, the commission stepped up and that project's underway as well. So these are some of the big projects that are going on, along with all the school projects we've done, all the other things that we've achieved. Let's talk about a little bit about future needs, though. There are a couple things hanging out there. I don't think it'll get done in the next budget or two cycle, but we've got to have a new operations center for fire, for our county fire system. They started out, well, really, they're on Prince Street, and they're still there, but they've outgrown everything. It was a small building there. They've expanded the building. Here's the problem. A fire truck now is about $600,000. You don't want it sitting out in the snow because you don't have anywhere to cover it or climate control it. You don't want us to have to unplug it and try to see if we can get it started to send it to your house because it's snowing and your house is on fire. So those resources have got to be properly managed. And we've just reached the point where we've done so much with so little for so long, we can pretty much do anything with nothing. But we're at nothing when it comes to that. So that's a real need that will have to be addressed in the next budget cycle or two. We've been trying, even since I was the EMS director, to get an ambulance station across the river, ideally in the Wheel community. I assume that dings that I'm on out of time. Because we have to cross the river to go out that way, it's a long ways out there to have to wait on an ambulance. You can't hold your breath that long, I guarantee it. But we have to cross the river as well. So we want service out there. It's been the slowest growth area, even though there's plenty of growth out there. And we've had to address the other areas of the county, but it's very much on the radar that there's going to have to be a full service station there. Now we have first responder assets in that area. So we're going to get somebody to you, but we're counting on volunteers to help us there. We're going to need a motor pool right away for county. We have so many vehicles now, we have so many things that we do, and we are farming out to every mechanic shop in town almost, it feels like, one way or another to work on vehicles. But we got enough vehicles now that it's probably in our best interest to have a system of our own and make sure our emergency vehicles are serviced first and these kind of things. Again, this is long term, but it's a practical need that we're going to have. And then I would tell you a fueling depot for the county. Here's the thing to think about with the county. We don't really have the ability to store fuel. Now, we don't need to be a gas station and we don't need gazillion gallons of fuel, but if there was a disruption in fuel tomorrow, we don't have any resilience to say, well, we're going to hold, or we're not going to fuel these vehicles. We're going to save this for emergencies. And we've had fuel shortages in our lifetime. I've seen them in my lifetime as well. And you would like to think that other businesses that hold fuel would say, oh yeah, well, you're the government, sure, we'll hold our fuel for you instead of selling it. That's not how it works. I've sat in a room whenever I had a local business tell me that I wasn't their client and that as long as they had fuel, they were taking care of their people, not the ambulance. I was stunned by it. But it does prove the fact that we do need to have some resiliency. Again, when we're looking out toward the future, I like to say this, and former politicians might not like it here in Bedford, but really one of the things I ran on, I always felt like we run the county like we were going out of business. We do the bare minimum to get by. That's nice for the tax rate to keep it low, and that's good. But what that does to us is instead of building that school 4 years earlier and it would have cost $10 million less, you put us in a situation we still have to build the school. We just waited 4 years and paid $10 more million to build it, and we robbed kids for 4 years of education space in there as well. So if we're in the business, if it's ours to do, we ought to do it. And that's, again, where it's hard to find people to say yes. Talking about, actually, when I said infrastructure, I talked about the importance of the industrial park. I talked about broadband, but I also talked about well, I don't know that I talked about it, but I want to tell you the Shovel-Bedford partnership was something that I'm proud to be a part of. We knew that we had to have a next generation economic development engine if we were going to get things in that industrial park, if we were going to stabilize what was going on in industry and business, and we were going to make sure those things were happening for recruitment and retention, for workforce job readiness. That really wasn't a good program for that. Tourism, believe it or not, tourism is just as important to the county as it is the cities. Shelbyville, Belleville, Ward Trace, and Normandy all are in Bedford County. So we benefit from that because education gets half of those sales tax that they collect. But we also have Tennessee Downs, the exotic car people. You got Uncle Nearest Distillery, that's totally in the county. We're getting that sales tax. You've also got this Music City Motorplex go-karts. That's all in the county. We're getting 100% of that sales tax. So it's important that we're investing in tourism as well. And we're doing that through the chamber, we're doing that through the partnership, and we're doing that through the foundation. They just had a big 5K run. It was a tremendous success. To put in perspective some of the economic development that's happened because of the partnership and the structure that we put in place, I would argue we got ducks on in the industrial park. Remember, we had nothing in the industrial park. They invested over $100 million. There'll be 100 jobs plus when it's all said and done. Cooper Steel has made tremendous investments in Bedford County's education system, but the county as a whole, even though they reside in the city, over 50 million. Broadband, we talked about already, 11 million. Uncle Nearest is 100 million when it's all said and done, when they actually are bottling and actually distilling here. Again, we're enjoying sales tax there. Tennessee Downs, 30 million. That Cartplex is already $4 million with a promise of $4 more million investment. Things happening right downtown here in Shelbyville. Glass Hollow is here. Grindstone Cowboy. Classic Hops is coming. Education, I couldn't get away without talking about this. MTSU's made $74 million investment with the aviation program coming. TCAP, $54 million facility. Thank you, Pat Marsh, Shane Reeves, and all the people around this table that believed in the importance of education and career technical education. So we're going to have a state-of-the-art facility right here in Bedford. Motlow's made over $500,000 commitment in aviation simulators. And then I want to give you some government truths. I think you'll appreciate these in the end. The government don't make money. We spend money, and the money we spend is yours. So always remember that. When you come to me, want your road paved or any of those things, I like to tell people, look, I don't make money. I spend it. Are you willing to give it? A lot of times they're not. And then, unfortunately, and this is the truth, it's why we don't really operate like a business. Government has to do things that aren't profitable. If it was profitable, the private sector would do it. So we wind up with the court system. We wind up with the jails. We wind up with the schools. We wind up with solid waste, get rid of your trash and those things. It's just natural. And then the government moves slow. And everybody in here knows this because you've wanted something done and we haven't been able to get it done in a timely manner. That is also a safety valve, though, because as politicians change out, you get radical people come in a hurry. And if you could change a bunch of things, they could turn the system upside down on its head overnight as well. So there's a little bit of built-in resiliency in why the government moves slow. And we're at the end of this, but I'll read this because I do think this is pretty cool, although I don't think I wrote it. All these things make Bedford better, but generational change will come by bringing a strong middle class back to Bedford, which is what I talked about with the end game is Chad wants his grandbabies to live in Bedford. And we do that through a better Bedford. And then most importantly, and this is the new slang going forward, is and most importantly, we're better together. They're trying to divide us every way they can in this world, guys, no matter what you're looking at, social media, television programs, or whatever you're doing. So I encourage you to hold the line and stay in the fight. And just remember, no matter what the situation is, we're better together. We'll stand stronger together. But always the fallback is to divide and conquer. That's a military maneuver from a gazillion years ago. That's what people that are coming after us are all about, is divide and conquer. Don't believe nothing you hear on the internet, even if it says something good about Chad. All right, I got you. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you.